Good morning. Welcome to Place in the Sun Revisited. My name's Liz Rowlinson, a property journalist, and I'm here with Mark and Prriya. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
How are you?
Really well.
Very
Thank
well.
you.
Yeah.
Great. Well, look, thank you for coming back to tell us about how you got on with your Greek property. To anyone who hasn't caught the episode, Mark and Prriya were looking for a holiday home in Crete with a budget of £300,000, 3 or 4 bedrooms, focusing on the northwest coast. So tell us, just remind us, how did you end up being on the TV show?
I had, well, we all know Google tracks everything that we do in our life, right? So I had been searching for properties in Crete for a little while at the beginning of last year, and I guess at the end of the year before. And in fact, actually, I had planned a trip to go out last March. I negotiated with Prriya. We talked about going out, the three of us. Thought it's not practical to take Luca out. I'd negotiated that I would skip off for a week and go and see loads of properties. Then, of course, COVID hit. That didn't happen. The whole thing got shelved. But a little while later, maybe sometime early summer last year, an ad popped up in my browser that said, "Do you want to be on the next episode of A Place in the Sun? We're going to Crete." And I was like, wow, okay. So I filled in the form, took 30 seconds or less, a couple of brief questions. And apparently I didn't even mention it.
Not a word.
And I think it was because, these things you think you'll never hear again. It's like, well, you send this thing off and you'll never hear again. And it seemed like I almost wasn't going to hear again, because I think it must have been like 9 months or something until April this year. And quite surprisingly, weirdly, on my birthday in April this year, I got a phone call that basically said, "Are you still interested?" And I was like, well, yeah. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
Brilliant. And because usually it's often the woman that's the initiator of the TV thing, and they sort of don't mention it and then sort of spring it on the partner or husband. So
saying that because the family, they kind of thought it was me, that I had done it. It's not something that Mark would ever do. And I said, no, it had nothing to do with me.
Yes. And the thing is, I'm sure all people, it might be different. For me, being on TV wasn't the attraction. In fact, I was a bit hesitant about it. So I really want to do this. What I wanted was a property in Crete. So this seemed like it was like it was handed to me kind of on a plate, and it was like it was too tempting to resist. And you've got the researchers and the team supporting you, and with COVID, travel is difficult. But it being work, the travel was organised by the company, and so. It was like it's like, we've got to be on TV, but we'll get to see some property. That's kind of how it came about.
Yeah.
And Prriya, how did you feel about going on TV?
I had really sort of mixed feelings about it. What I had really wished was, say, for example, I had a year's notice and I would have gone to the gym every day. There couldn't be a single bigger motivator than that. But it wasn't like that at all.
It's interesting you say that, because a couple that appeared recently on the TV show were so shocked into seeing themselves on TV, and they will no, don't mind me saying this, that they then went away and have lost about 7 stone between them. They're interesting.
If you could have CGI'd out my COVID tummy, I would have been happier still.
Well, it's a cracking episode, as we've all seen. So we're going to have a quick look at remind ourselves of the intro.
What a way to start the day. I mean, look at it. Yes. Yeah. What is the dream?
I mean, the dream is, to have a holiday home and all our friends and family, they can just join us here.
We both come from large families, so I've got my twin daughters, Laurel and Camille. Together we have Luca.
Yeah.
But then we've each got a brother and a sister, each with 3 children.
Okay, so large extended family.
The place might need to get bigger and bigger as we get through the week to start getting everyone in.
And how many times have you been to Crete?
This is my 3rd time, your second time.
Okay.
When I came with Laurel and Camille about 12 years ago, the first time to Crete, it was almost an instant love affair. And it's hard to describe what it is, but it's something about the tranquility. And then when we came back about 2 or 3 years ago with Prriya and with Luca, and the 5 of us came, that was just reinforced. We weren't imagining it the last time.
So what exactly are we looking for in terms of property?
Well, I think because of the large family, I think 3 bedrooms ideally is a minimum. Could we squeeze with 2 with a sofa bed in the lounge?
I don't think so. So 3 bedrooms.
3 bedrooms.
I think 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms.
Yeah.
But it is as much about the area as the property,
Okay.
and indeed the view. 60% of the view for me needs to be the sea, because water is a big thing.
Very calming.
It's very
Yeah,
calming.
It's healing.
Yeah.
It's healing, and I want to spend a lot of time out on the sea as well, in boats and snorkeling and all that kind of stuff.
In terms of internal layouts, etc., decor,
Tend to prefer more modern
Contemporary.
than old, but that's also for practical reasons like modern wiring and air conditioning and all those things.
Although I love rustic too.
yes.
Yeah.
In the right situation.
What's Luca's requirements?
A swimming pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Swimming pool, I think, would be number 1.
Yeah.
And ideally walking distance to a beach.
Okay. Close to shops and bars and to those?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So we've got a budget of £300,000. Any wiggle room?
Another 30,
50.
50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So between 30 to 50,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of work to do, haven't we, guys?
We have.
Should we get going?
Can't
Come
wait.
on, let's go.
Great. So you hadn't so you'd been to Crete a few times, as you've talked about in the episode, had holidays, and you kind of you knew, did you know vaguely what your budget would get you in terms of space?
Looking for a while. But there's quite a spread. When you look from a distance and you don't really know the area or know much about it, it seems a bit surprising, because for a certain budget you can get all this, and some of the same budget somewhere else you get something very different, which is the importance of location and how close you are up to the sea and all these various different things. But there are so many parameters in it that it is confusing from a distance, just looking online, trying to work out what really you might get and what indicates value or whatever.
I mean, when that call came through, I had done zero research on property, so I did have mixed feelings, and I thought, how can I make a judgment on this, because I've got no background experience or no research. But anyway, I trusted Mark. That's all I could do.
Yeah. Just out of interest, did you ever look at the other end of the north coast of Crete? Because that's the bit I know better than your patch. But
Heraklion and the eastern side.
Yes.
Well, look, where we've been on holidays, we've been on that side, which is more. So I know one of the challenges, and when we first started talking to the researchers, and they said, what area? And I was like, well, it's a big island, it's all over. But one of the things I've realized from previous trips is, because it's such a big island, driving times can actually be quite long to get to places. 2, 3, even more hours, right? So if you think, we're here, let's go for the afternoon to whatever. On a holiday with kids in hot, 30 plus degrees, do you really want 2 or 3 hours each way?
Yeah.
So although there are beautiful areas all over, one idea I had was reasonably center, so that you could actually get equidistant from more places more easily. Then it was the balance between the nature, but also being quite easy to get to a major kind of city.
Yeah.
And we are pretty much smack bang, although we're not quite in the center of the island, we're a bit off to the west of the center, but we are equidistant between Chania and Rhydymnon, which are the 2 beautiful Venetian port towns.
Yes.
So that seems like a pretty good sort of compromise. And what a surprise, most of the people who buy villas have come to the same conclusion. And so there are a lot of people in that area for that reason. And so kind of, once we'd zoned it in, it kind of thought, well, this makes sense. Kind of all came together.
Yeah, there's a lot more choice of properties in that area, but the rub is that it's not quite as low density. But you found we've seen you found a wonderful spot. So let's talk about the property. I mean, when you first saw property 5, which what were your initial thoughts? Because it just doesn't really look like a holiday villa, does it?
No, and it was completely different to anything else we had been shown, or even that we'd seen previously. So I think for me, the first thing, when we were stood outside sort of waiting for the call to come in, is the house is right there in front of you, blocking the sea view, but you can see kind of the expanse, the wide expanse. There's something in there, something. You knew there was something behind it that was quite spectacular.
Yeah.
And in fact, apparently I sort of whispered to Priya, and the cameraman said, yeah, he heard it on his earphone. Even before we went in, I said, you know, I feel myself getting a bit emotional already, because there was something so special, so magical, even in the way that it was hidden by the building itself. So I kind of knew there was an anticipation of something. And what you don't get actually on the TV show, because it's impossible with the contrast with the camera, right? When you walk into the lounge, on the filming, the window is completely whited out, right?
Yeah.
With the sunshine, because you can't see. But as a human, when you walk into the room, that's not whited out. You see right through to the view and to the pool. And so as you open that door, it hits you. And it just floored it. Well, it floored me, as you could tell.
Tell me if, because we were chatting about it with the rustic one, that there was perhaps the other one that I think you liked, Priya especially. Yeah. If you hadn't have seen Property 5, would you think you'd have bought that one?
You know, the downside to that property was the developer, you know, he's bought a plot of land and he's built 3 houses right next to each other. And I do see that as a bit of an issue because, you know, say you want to play loud music and you've got guests. I mean, that's a big minus point to even though I actually love that house. Yeah. But the pool was too small. But I mean, the gardens were beautiful. Yeah. And the property itself, the house itself, you know, the perfect, you know, number of rooms and bathrooms. And you wouldn't have had to do work on the actual house. So that was very good.
I mean, we went back and forth about saying, if nothing's better than this, we'll go for number 2. And then thinking, I think it was number 2, wasn't it? But then also, so you didn't get, what you didn't come across really on the show is that you're right next to someone else's balcony and someone else's, which kind of is fine, but it was that close that you really feel they hear you talking on it and vice versa. And it was a little bit far from the sea. But I mean, to be honest, the house itself is nicer than the house that we bought. Yeah. That terrace and that lush green and the flowers was amazing. So, I mean, we were very tempted, but as the kind of time there went on, I did start to think, and at one point I said to Brett, I said, you know, I don't think we're going to be able to find it. And here's the thing. If we had gone out by ourselves, we would have seen about 20 properties in a week. The researchers, with the producer and the assistant, they saw 20 or 27 properties in the week before us, right? And it turns out they made a great sort of selection, but I'm like, can we really make this level of commitment based on the 5 properties that we've seen? Because they were all, and you've seen the show, we all had positive things to say about all of them, but there wasn't a kind of knockout, or there were things, right, until we got to the last. And as some people have pointed out, there are quite a few things that maybe didn't tick the box. You know, the house is too small and there's maybe nothing special. It's not walking distance to the beach, which actually was my number 1. All that stuff went by. It's like none of that was important. You know, and to Priya's phrase, which the film crew, I think, laughed at quite a bit when they said, well, should we go and see the bedrooms? And Priya's like, I mean,
yes, you said don't bother.
Because it's not about that, right?
Yeah, you know. I love that. But what came across is the diversity of, as you say, that was 5 out of 25 or whatever. But the complete mix of types of property you can get in Crete.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot, and I'm not just saying this to sound good for the team. I think that the production company did an amazing job of selecting 5 properties that all had something along with what, you know, connected to what we asked for. And despite the fact that I, for months, had been researching online, I'd actually never seen any of those properties.
Well, that's a good point, Mark, because a lot, especially with countries like Greece, they don't necessarily overly promote what they've got. Sometimes the photography's not great, the quality. So they dig out these little gems.
Yeah.
So great. Yeah, well, let's have a look at let's remind ourselves about Property 5.
Property number 5. The villa is a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom property. What you can see directly in front of us is a mural that was commissioned by a local famous artist 20 years ago. What do you think?
I mean, I absolutely love it. I feel like it's going to be living inside a Grecian urn. That's the sense I'm getting from it. So absolutely loving it. And of course, again, see just a bit of the sea, which I know is behind there, but concerned about the size. So we'll just have to see how that works out.
Even though this is smaller than what you've asked for, I have been assured by the agent that the current owner has drawn up some rough plans to extend the property by 57 square metres, where you can add 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, almost like a self-contained apartment in the back. There is plenty of room to do so.
Right.
And for something like that, it would cost around £45,000.
Okay.
The property is on the market for just over £301,500.
Okay. If we're reassured that we can extend with permissions and space, then I think that's fine.
That's an option for sure.
That's an option for sure.
Shall we go and
Please.
have a look?
Yeah.
Let's go. Okay, so that's the tough bit done. Once they start looking around, this property is sure to impress. As well as the driveway to the front, the outside space to the rear is impressive, with its pool and terrace area. It has room for cooking, eating and entertaining, and a large balcony, all with incredible sea views. Inside, every room makes the best of those vistas, with a living room and dining room with a big picture window. A separate kitchen, 2 bedrooms, both a good size, and a family bathroom.
Great. Yeah. No, I mean, it's stunning. So I'm dying to know what on earth you're going to do with it. How are you going to extend it? What are you going to do with all that wonderful outside space?
So there is actually an acre of land, 4,000 or even 4,200. There's a slight question about exact boundaries now. We're just sorting through. So it is quite a lot of land, which is another thing that was attracted to us.
I want to turn it into, everything, every part of it is a usable space, because at the moment, it's just being covered completely in gravel. So I would like to zone it out into different areas. So, I mean, the other thing is, in the summer, we're going to be there mostly, and the sun is just so strong. So, we'd love to create a carport, electric area. So that's really important. And then also, just for example, you may not want to go to the beach every day, and some days you just want to stay on, in that house. So you create like a playground, you could create like an outdoor gym, everything like shaded areas. And I would love to be able to eat from that land as well.
Yes.
Fig trees and apricot trees and all that stuff.
Pomegranate trees, lemon trees. Yeah. To me, that's a dream.
Yeah. So I think there's 2 priorities. So one is just to soften all that gravel, which you get when the sun is blaring on you, the white reflection from the gravel. I mean, it's like being in a
very
salt
harsh
pit or something. It's actually a little bit difficult. We're going to essentially greenify all that. Try and turn it into, I say quite a botanic gardens, but one that is ecologically consistent with the area. So it's not going to turn it into an English garden, right?
Yeah,
it has to be one sustainable for the environment. But yes, beautiful flowers and shade. You often see in Crete these kind of lovely shaded walkways, and they're shaded with vines, with grapevines, stuff like that. So build places, but places where you can sit and just watch the sunset in different areas. So that's one thing. And of course, the other thing is to build some extra space that we can have family and friends. So we're thinking we might be able to get 3 bedrooms and another 2 or 3 bathrooms in an extension.
And then also the main house will be reconfigured.
Okay.
It's not best use of space. So we've got an architect who's looking at both plans for both. So I mean, also like as soon as you go in, there's a kitchen which is to the back. And nowadays, modern family homes, the kitchen is very much, it's the center of the home. So, and it should have a view rather than kind of being stuck in the back. So you want to be in the kitchen, you want to be able to see the sea. So we're going to have to.
So I think we're going to change some things around. And look, the reality is, so the sales agent and said, there is the previous owner had a price to do an extension, and you possibly could do an extension for the price mentioned. But the truth is, the potential here is so much more than that. But I think to do justice to it, we are going to have to up the budget a bit to do the things that we want to do. So that's what we said. Well, we're going to reconfigure the house a bit. We're going to build the extension. And so we have an architect and we have a landscape architect looking at the grounds and the
Wow,
right and all that kind of
exciting.
stuff. So it's very exciting, and it will take time. So one of the first things we've heard is that it can take 6 months or more to get planning permission.
Yes. Mhm.
So, I mean, I was very excited. We were there in August. We met some people, right, you know, can we get on this right away? Could we get this ready for next summer, right? So we could start inviting people and doing all that. And finally, when it came to it, I said, you know what? Take that stress away. It's going to take 2 or 3 months to agree the designs. It might take 6 months or more to get planning permission. And then you don't want to start the building that then encroaches on your summer, and you can't even enjoy next summer there because it's a building site. So I've accepted, you know, forget all that. You have your wonderful summer there. You start the building, hopefully
just don't
in
wanna rush it.
September.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, we can't rush it. Yeah.
So
First thing that we can do.
yeah. So it might actually take 2 years or more, you know, before we actually get to where we want to be. And then with, you know, we're talking about trees or even just the growing, that's going to take it the time it takes to grow. So
But I hate to put, you know, years ahead, kind of like the way
Well,
you're
I
putting it
know.
out into the universe, like 2-3 years. No, it's going to happen in good time.
Rome wasn't built in a day, and
Yeah.
Crete wasn't built in a day. So, oh, how exciting! The potential is amazing. So, how long did the purchase process take? Were there any sort of things that you learnt to sort of about that you didn't realise, etc.?
well, have a really good lawyer. So
Great.
I had done research before we went out there, and I had chosen a lawyer. I had her all lined up, even before we knew we'd have a place. And in fact, on our last few hours there, we had a mad dash into Hania before we had a plane to catch to meet her, to be taken to the notary office to sign a power of attorney so that she could get stuff done even while we're not there. And that was touch and go whether we'd be able to do that in time with the schedule and everything. So basically, look, so we were there, was it the first or the second week in June that we were doing the filming? And we completed a day before we went out there. So we completed on the 6th of August. So is that 2 months?
3 months is kind of vaguely
Yeah.
what to
June
expect, I
to
think.
July to August. It's actually, it's 2 months.
Oh.
So, and again, we'd hold, well, it could take 1 month, it can take 4, it can take 6 months. So there weren't really issues. I would say it was easy, but in truth, our lawyer dealt with everything so that it's actually not true that there weren't issues. It's just they were dealt with so that we didn't really need to deal with them. And so the other thing that we got alongside the purchase was the golden visa.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which means that we can stay there longer than the 90 days in one go. Although with school holidays for Luca, I don't know when we're going to be able to do that.
Wonderful. Yeah, because I think, is it 300,000 euros the threshold for that in Greece?
It's 250.
Oh, gosh, even lower. Right.
Yes. So we were able to do that, but that's actually, you know, that's a harder thing to organise the paperwork for that than the purchase. But we kind of did it simultaneously, and the lawyer kind of lined everything up. And then when we were there in August, we went and had interviews at the officials and got it all sorted. So I would say my number one thing is to have a lawyer. I know a lot of people, because I've read about this, take a lawyer recommended by the sales agent. Well, I'm sure that can be fine. That doesn't seem to make
it can sometimes. It's just that there's obviously some now and again in the past there've been crooked sales agents who will then recommend a crooked lawyer. So that's why
yes,
the caveat.
I would think have an independent lawyer. So I mean that's our main lesson. But other than that, you know, things take time. Communication in Greece, you know, all my years, 30, 40 years of professional life, you know, I'm on my emails, I'm on my messages. If someone contacts me and I'm trying to get hold of a client, you know, I'm right back there. You know, I built a business, a global business, you know, in Australia and in UK. I was 24/7, right? And I would get back to you. And people don't always easily get back to you, whether it's a WhatsApp message or an email. It's like, you know, how many? So you have to chill a bit. You have to.
Well, that's the whole point of this property, isn't it? You're going to chill.
Then you can tell our excitement. It's like, no, but I want to get it. I've got to move forward, get the, and then so finally we did a whole big thing on selecting the architect, and I'm very happy with the architects that we've got. But then it was like, okay, I know it's taken a little longer to decide, but now we're deciding, let's go. And he comes back and says, yeah, we can start work on the 22nd of November. I'm like, well, you know, for me, that was another 2 or 3 months delay before he's even starting the concept work. So yes, I have to learn just to treat it as a holiday home that it is and chill.
So, and I can see, Mark, that you could, and as with the golden visa, you facilitated some frequent and potentially lengthier trips. And I can see you having to sort of spend, well, having to, but being willing to spend a lot of time out there overseeing this, because it's potentially going to need that, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think certainly once the building starts, and again, we've talked about this, and we'll take it in turns. And Prriya can go out and have, a girlfriend time out there, and I'll look after Luca, and so we'll take it in turn. But yes, I might have to take a few maintenance trips and skip over. But certainly, when the building work starts, you don't.
Yeah.
I think you need to be there. I mean, you can't be there the whole time, but you'd want to not leave it too long before keeping an eye on it.
Well, you can do FaceTime tours and all sorts of wonderful things to help that these days, but not the substitute for going there and seeing.
No, it's true. And I thought about setting up a webcam, or even 2 or 3 little webcams around there, if I can get that organised, so you could keep track of things away. But yeah, so we'll take trips. So I mean, we have, but this is the first time I've ever had. In all my years running my business, I basically took like 1 week holidays, right? Because you're running a business. I have booked basically all of July and all of August next year already. Oh. And this is the thing, it's probably the cheapest holiday I've ever had, because it was just the plane ticket bought lot in advance and a little cheap hire car for the period. And that's it. So suddenly, finally, it's kind of delivering. Because we're going to have 8 weeks in this amazing place. And it's really not costing much at all. So that's a chunk of time we'll spend there. Luca is already really looking forward to. He and I are talking all the time about all the different things we'll do. Oh. And it's a long time for Prriya maybe to be away from London and friends and family and stuff. But we'll work through that. We'll see how that goes.
And what about when? Do you have anyone keeping an eye on it when you're not there? How does that work?
Well, so the previous owner had a maintenance couple, really.
Okay.
And she was very kind. She said, look, let me give you their details. And since they'd been maintaining the property for her,
they know everything.
They know everything about it.
Every switch
where the power is, what's like that.
Oh, so, superb.
Yeah, so he, once a week he comes in and he checks the water and this, that, and the other. So we absolutely just continued that. And that was a very good decision. And so, in fact, I said my girls were there in September. So the first thing that happened within the first few days, one of the air conditioning units in the second bedroom stopped working. It was still pretty hot. But I was able to contact this guy and he sorted it out, basically.
Brilliant. And was the previous owner Greek?
No,
British.
She was British, living in France. Yeah.
But because the artwork, what are you gonna keep it? I mean, it's fascinating. That aspect.
Obviously, there are lots of opinions on it. I quite like it, although in truth, when you look at it in detail, it's not huge finesse. As someone said to me, the conception was better than the execution. So it's a nice idea, but most people have said get rid of it. Most Greek people we've seen have said get rid of it. I'm pretty a big fan.
What would you have instead? How do you visualize it?
I want to see just more kind of like a natural stone look.
Yeah, a bit greenery maybe or something.
Yeah, greenery. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, one of the things we've talked about an extension and changing the house. That all sounds great. The rules in Crete are incredibly strict about the amount of building. They have controlled it really well.
Yeah.
And they want to keep it mostly mounted. So we're very tightly limited to the square meterage as it is there of what you can do. But if it's not a completely enclosed, covered space, that is outside of those rules. So we have a balcony at the front and a little bit on one of the side. But if you notice, there was like this iron kind of grate, almost like a prison around the front door. I think, but you could extend a kind of balcony around the side.
Yeah.
Shade there, and instead get more living space, but more usable space without encroaching on your build space. So I think we're thinking of things like that. So it basically extend a sort of a balcony space around there. We might do an outside shower. We talked about that. You come back from the beach, you're covered in sand. I mean, really, you don't want to traipse that through the house anyway. But why take up internal space with a shower when you're mostly there in warm weather? Have just a gorgeous rain shower outside and rinse off before you come in the house. So we're trying to think of creative ways to make the most of the space within the building, the strict building requirements.
Wow, it's going to be so exciting. You must come back and show us it in a well, I'm going to say 3 years at this rate, maybe.
No, no.
Well, maybe less, 2 years.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the advantage. I was meant to ask you about the planning permissions, because I don't know whether it's the same in Crete, but is it limited to the amount relative to the size of the plot? And luckily you've got such a big plot, so you can expand.
We can expand. Apparently it's about 75 square meters we think we can add to it, which is why we're now thinking maybe we could get 3 bedrooms and maybe even 2 extra bathrooms. But that's not signed off yet. We've got to get that through. So it's very much fingers crossed, but that's our hope. And then, as I say, making use of the space. The word they use there is pergolas. By the pool, where you've got a kind of shade, but it's not solid roof or solid walls. So different pergolas around the space where the family might be wanting to do workout music over at this point, or swim-a-sides in the pool, but someone else might want to read quietly over here. So just a couple of chairs and with some shade around you and looking out at the mountains. One thing I will say was a lot of things I will say. But so my first requirement was to be right on the beach, or as close walking to the beach. It's not. It's a 10-minute drive. It's nothing, right? It's fine. But what I hadn't fully appreciated in my requirement was how beautiful it is to be up in the mountains.
I've always loved the mountains.
Yeah, I love mountains too. I was just more of a sea and a beach person, so that was my priority. But you're 10 minutes up the street, and it's so amazing. First of all, the solitude, the quiet, things you can hear. But when we were there in October half term, so at the beginning of the week, actually it was quite sunny. It was 26 degrees. Luca and I were at the beach swimming. It was great. As the week went on, the clouds moved in, and it was like the valley obscured by clouds, right? It was all these mist and mountains, to the point that you couldn't see the sea at all. In fact, there were moments when you could hardly even see the pool, right? It was that. But that had its own magical quality. It was actually quite stunning to be in this space surrounded with these mists around you and in the mountains. So that's a whole additional dimension of kind of non-summertime there that suddenly opened up.
And in Crete at that time of year, there's a lot of hikers. It's perfect weather to go hiking.
Yeah.
And so if you have the right setup, then you could have that kind of holiday. We weren't prepared for that kind of holiday, so we didn't enjoy it as much as we could have done.
But we will want to use it more in different times of the year. And
I was going to say because I've been in our October half term, and it was pleasantly warm enough in Crete to do that October. And but as you say, sort of being up in it's always a slight payoff. You can be close to the sea, but you don't enjoy the elevated views. So it's one or the other, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think we got the best of all worlds here. And we do feel incredibly lucky to have found this. And one of the interesting things, we originally, when we were planning this with the team, were going to go out several weeks before. But then it turned out Prriya had less than 6 months on her passport. That was a problem. So then we rushed a new passport, and it was like going to come through the day before we were going to fly out. And the production company like, we can't take a risk like that. We can't plan this, and then you can't get out. So they pushed it back 6 weeks or something. The key point about that, the house that we bought only was on the market a week or two before we went out there. So if we had gone on the first and when originally planned, that house wouldn't have been there, and who knows? So timing in life is everything, right?
Yeah, it was meant to be, this one, clearly.
So.
When are you next going out there?
Well, so we're booked for the summer.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure we will be out there before then. As April, it's my birthday again, comes around again in April, and Easter. We haven't booked that yet. I mean, there is a small thing. It's like, is this now the only place you're ever going to go? It's a big world. You've made this commitment, so.
Luca needs to see the world.
So there is a thing about maybe changing it up a bit, and particularly until we've made it how we want to do it. I'm sure we will go out before. But
until you've made it how it's really yours, would you ever consider renting it out?
We could do, and I think once we've got it, actually, I think we will rent it, right? Because it's going to take more money than originally anticipated. So that's a sensible thing to do. But when you're not there, I mean, you might as well rent it. But could we rent it now? Yes, but
there's a lot of villas in Crete. So I'm not sure that at the moment how it is, that it's really particularly interesting to rent it out. But I do have another idea, which was to use it for events.
I was going to say, because of that space, I mean, what about like a wonderful, you know, a sort of yoga retreat? I mean, there's all sorts of scope.
A wedding venue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I brought my girls there, I said, girls, we've got it sorted now. We know where you're going to get married.
Exactly. With that view.
With that view.
Yeah.
It's a stunning kind of thing. So I think we have got thoughts about doing all that. Yeah, I think we won't rent it until we've got it how we want it, and kind of really release it to the world as something special to come and stay at.
Brilliant. Oh, well, look, I think I mean, any final tips for people who might be thinking of, you know, falling in love with Crete just by watching your program, for example? I mean,
well, I you know, two things. One, you know, keep an open line, right? I thought I was so clear in my requirements, and I was clear in my requirements, but what we've got, you know, is completely, well, not completely different, but it's quite a bit different and quite a bit better. So I think be prepared to change your mind. I think having your own lawyer is really important, and perhaps, you know, if you wanted to move on with it quickly, having that lined up, ready to go. I think giving the power of attorney is on a practical level is really helpful, you know, if you're not going to be there.
Well, maybe go on the TV program, because they'll find you something that you might not find online. That's exactly. I guess. All right. Well, look, thank you very much, both of you. Best of luck with it. It's wonderfully exciting, and do keep in touch and show us the end product.
We will do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Cheers, bye.
Bye.